Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This is the weekly Tottenham news review. I'm leader Dorset Spur. I'm here to give you my opinion on all the things that have happened over the last 7 days. Please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section below. Let us know whether you agree with me, whether you disagree with me, whether I'm totally deluded or whether I'm calling it right. If you're not a subscriber to Chris's channel, please do hit that subscribe button. He puts out loads and loads of really good content. Doesn't cost you anything, so what you got to lose? Anyway, listen, some bits and pieces to talk about. But of course, the first thing we need to talk about is the fact that Tottenham are now into the semi-final of the Europa League after beating Eintracht Frankfurt last night, 1-0 to make it 2-1 on aggregate, and we progress. Hallelujah. This does obviously mean that Ange Postecoglou doesn't go just yet. I know there were lots of people calling for him to be sacked straight after this game. But, you know, funny things happen, don't they? Like he says, he always wins things in his second season. People are mocking him about it and so on and so forth. But it's a statement of fact until it's not a statement of fact. So, listen, ultimately, you've got to just accept that whilst this season may be one of the worst that we can remember for such a long time, actually we've still got something to play for. And, you know, we're deep into April, still got something to play for, which is not usual, unless you can count trying to get into the top four as something to play for. But listen, you know, talking about last night, let's focus on last night itself. Obviously, a great result. Difficult performance, I thought. Really interesting. Before the game, there was a lot of trepidation about it. Everybody, pretty much, that you kind of talk to, unless you're a deluded happy clapper, maybe a little bit like myself, a lot of people calling that this was going to be a defeat, hostile conditions, all that kind of stuff. Ange without a plan and everything means that we were going to lose the game. And that was going to be it. As soon as the game was over, Ange Postecoglou gets the sack, and a certain section of the fan base would be more than happy. For me, I kind of always had the hope that this team could turn up and put in a performance and win the game. I think I'd called out, I thought it was going to be high scoring, actually. I thought that Tottenham would progress. Right, I hoped that Tottenham would progress, and I hoped that we would progress, you know, with a scoreline of something like 3-2. I thought it would be tight, but we would ultimately get through. And I was totally wrong. I absolutely totally wrong with how the game plan panned out, and the style of play that we were going to do and everything else. So actually quite shocked. And whilst it was a difficult watch, I went to the club, watched it with my son and some friends. And I'm watching it, and I was never comfortable, if I'm being honest, never comfortable in it at all. And I think that's probably just the Spurs fan in me, because what I wanted to see was us come out all guns blazing, get a couple of goals up, and then really kind of go for it, you know. But obviously that was never going to happen. Like, it's a bit stupid of me to think that way. And I did think that probably caution and a little bit more hard work was going to be what was required to actually win the game. And of course, that's exactly what happened. The team dug deep. They played for the badge. They played for their manager, I think, and they also played for themselves. There was a lot of aggression on the pitch as well, which I've not seen before from some players. Notably for me was Brennan Johnson. I thought he stepped up a lot. I thought he worked really hard, certainly defensively, which is not something he's been really known to do. I thought he worked really hard, chasing back and trying to disrupt play and everything, and showed a bit of aggression in there. There was a bit of a spiky moment with one of their players where he got himself booked. Unluckily, I didn't think there was too much in it, but maybe the afters kind of made the ref make that kind of decision. But ultimately, I thought he did really well, worked really hard. A big shout out as well. I have to give a big shout out to Dominic Solanke. I thought, and he's another one who's been getting an awful lot of stick of late. People calling out, oh, he hasn't scored since January and his return this year has been poor and blah, blah, blah. I honestly can't understand it. I honestly can't understand it. I think if you watch Tottenham on a regular basis and you watch Dominic Solanke play, what you should be seeing is all the effort and the running that the guy does. He puts so much effort into trying to get involved in the game, trying to get on the ball, trying to set other players up, trying to bring other people into the game. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that. And that's because he's not been consistent enough in scoring, which I'm not going to argue that he needs to do that. He needs to put the ball in the back of the net. But if he's not getting any kind of service, and let's be honest with you, he hasn't been getting anything from anyone. You know, the ball is very predictable what we've been doing. The ball's going out wide, and then a lot of the balls are coming across, you know, being back to the byline, cut across, low balls and all the rest of it. That's more suited to someone like Brennan Johnson running onto the ball or Odegaard running onto the ball. Dominic Solanke is a central midfield, central attacking player who likes to get in the box, likes to get in amongst it. You know, the guy can head the ball, but how often do we see a decent looking ball being put in at that level for him to really attack? So I do feel for him a lot. I think it's been really unfair in his first season to be put under the pressure that he's under, considering, you know, the loss of Harry Kane. We've been so blessed with Harry Kane as a striker for so many years. When you consider before that, you know, there was a period where we had, you know, Janssen, Soldado, Pavlyuchenko, all these players that were not prolific in any sense of the word. And before that, you know, you've got to go back to the likes of Defoe and Keane, like a proper partnership of goal scorers rather than individual goal scorers, you know. So I think we were blessed with Harry Kane in terms of him being literally a goal scoring machine, which they're kind of seeing in Germany now. And so I think it's always going to be really difficult to fulfil those boots, whatever he does, however it works, and whoever he was, you know, to be fair, especially with the service that he's been given. But last night I thought he was terrific. I thought he worked really, really hard and put himself in there. One of the players who I really thought needed to step up last night was always going to be James Maddison. I've called him out a few times, if I'm being honest, because I do think James Maddison's a decent player. And when he signed for the club, I was really excited about it. I was excited about the idea of him and Kane, obviously at the time, linking up and so on. But with Kane leaving and Maddison kind of being left behind, you know, in his first season, I wanted him to be the talisman. I wanted him to be like the Eriksen for this group. Someone who was going to, you know, dictate play, make things happen, unlock low block teams and that kind of stuff. And all too often, that's not been the case. He's kind of left me worrying that he's gone invisible from time to time. And so for me, last night was the one that I really wanted to see him actually do something, like really put yourself in there and show what you're made of. You're part of this leadership group. You're one of the guys who comes out and talks to the media and so on. So now's the time, if ever there was one, now's the time for you to show. And albeit he only had 45 minutes in the game, I thought he started off slowly. I thought he kind of wasn't really in it too much, you know, but then he started to grow into it. A few decent passes out, you know, notably to Tell, Udogie down the left-hand side. I thought he started to run it, you know, get into the game. Of course, he gets a brilliant opportunity where he played a really clever ball. I think it was Bentancur played a really clever ball into him, and he put himself in there. He ran in, won the ball, and was absolutely wiped out by the keeper, which obviously then leads to the penalty decision. Now, for me, bang on penalty. There is no way that wasn't a penalty. No way that wasn't a penalty. The keeper comes out. He gets nowhere near the ball. He's not attacking the ball. Maddison had already headed it. Gets absolutely wiped out. And for me, I can't understand how the keeper stays on the pitch. Like, I get it, he's not the last man or whatever, but that was a really, really poor challenge. And Maddison took the full brunt of that. In fact, that made him actually have to leave the field of play. News so far suggests that he's okay, and maybe just a bit sore from being clattered or whatever. So we can't really see his full potential in that game of what he did and how it went. But his contribution is there for all to see. He won the penalty, which again, really good team play in that. Tell picks up the ball, stands there, and it looks for all intention and purposes that he's going to take it. But clearly at the end of it, they knew that it was always going to be Solanke. He's the main striker, as it was when Tell was on the pitch for Brennan Johnson. And he passes him the ball. Now, this was a really high-pressured moment. And bear in mind, this goal, in the end, was the deciding factor. But the high-pressured opportunity here, without a goal for a long time, difficult atmosphere, all that kind of stuff. But Dominic Solanke stepped up and played it brilliantly, and puts us 1-0 up, and that was it. And after that, it was a totally different game. Obviously, Frankfurt, it needed to come out more. They needed to push more, and there would be opportunities for us to kind of add to that. In my view, that's what it felt like at that moment. Obviously, the return of Kulusevski was brilliant, because when you've got Maddison coming out, when you can replace him with someone like Kulusevski, you think to yourself, now that feels like depth. That feels like we've got the right kind of level in the squad. You know, you can bring on a quality player like that. And did he work hard? He really did. He was all over the pitch running. Granted, I think he looked a bit rusty. I thought he looked a little bit kind of shy of the pace, which is understandable, being off for as long as he was, or out for as long as he was. But he did contribute. He did work hard. He made some really good runs. One of the instances that really kind of struck me was that the ball was being played by them deep, broke to us, and came to Kulu, who basically ran the whole length of the pitch, where we thought, this is it. This is the moment when we finish the game. But actually used his sense to slow the game down, keep control of the ball, play the ball back, and frustrate them even more. I think not only were they frustrated, but we were frustrated as fans, because 1-0 is never a margin that you want to be sitting looking at when you're a Tottenham fan. In fact, I never feel safe unless we're 3-0 up with 5 minutes to go, and then I think we can at least get a draw here. So for me, I was like, we need to bury him. We can't afford to play this defensive wait and see kind of game, try and soak up the pressure and close them out. I just didn't think that this was the game that we could do that in, but obviously we did. There was a change of tactics from Ange. There was less of the messing about, in the goalkeeping area. There was more kind of long ball. I was a bit disappointed though. I'm gonna have to say it, but Vicario's long kicking is not great. It reminded me a lot of Lloris, where it kind of either goes out of play or goes to their player. And that just then gives them momentum again. And you can't make any mistake about it. Frankfurt had their opportunities. They had plenty of opportunities. And had Christensen had his shooting boots on, we could have been absolutely punished. But at the end of it all, there was only one save really that was required from Vicario, who saved with his feet from Christensen, I believe. Turned the ball away, and a brilliant save. So that was his contribution for the game pretty much. And so for Frankfurt, a lot of it is down to their own lack of ability to actually finish us off, because we were soaking up an awful lot of pressure. But credit where it was due. I thought that, Udogie worked his socks off. Tell, I thought, had a decent game as well, starting to show what he's about. He had a really good shot in the first half that was well saved by the keeper. But really impressive, keen to have a go and really get involved in it. A few times he was crossing the ball as well. And again, I thought that was, quality effort and digging deep to make something happen. So for me, I thought we played very well. We did what we needed to do. But I think a lot has to go to Ange. I think he did do some tactical tweaks to try to make sure that once we'd got the goal, we weren't going to concede. We were going to shut up shop and frustrate them and keep them out. Particularly bringing on Sarr, I thought was a good move. Extra running in midfield, and he does have a threat on him. Albeit not in that game, but you never know with him. If something pops his way, he can really clatter it. And of course, Danso coming on as well to have 3 centre backs in there. Again, really, really good to see. I did think that there was an opportunity though in this game. I thought that maybe Richarlison could have come on towards the end. I really like the fact that he can draw fouls, frustrate players, bring a little bit of that shithousery in that helps you get through a little bit of the dark arts. Something that we don't do enough, in my view. And I think he's a perfect sort of player for that. But bearing in mind Solanke, running his socks off. But then maybe the weekend, that's when Richarlison comes in, Solanke gets a break, and it's kind of all changed. Maybe they're planning ahead, because obviously all their eggs are in one basket now. This is all about the Europa League and nothing else. So maybe that's the plan. Maybe he doesn't want to bring all these big players in if he doesn't need to, and to give us an opportunity really to get this one done and then move on to the next one with some fresh legs to see if we can get something. Because obviously coming up to the weekend, we've got Nottingham Forest at home, and that's going to be difficult because they're obviously flying. But as I say, I thought the team handled it really, really well. There was obviously the hostile environment that they all talk about, but for me, I think players, like that. I think they love that. I mean, it's a bit of a spectacle, the tifo at the beginning and all the rest of it, the whistles and the noise and all that. I don't think that puts a player off. I think that adds to the occasion, and it's the sort of occasion, if you've got anything about you, you want to be part of. You want to be part of that. So yeah, overall, brilliant result. Really decent performance, playing a different way, doing what we needed to do. And I think that kind of should tell people that maybe Ange does have a little bit of knowledge about how to win a game. Maybe he's been unlucky with different things. Maybe there's things he should have done differently, of course. Maybe he's still learning about the Premier League and how to progress in it, how to improve on it. And I'm sure that, whether it be the end of this season that Ange goes or in the future, I do think he will go on and he will be successful somewhere else. I honestly do believe that. I think, you don't manage football teams to the level that he has without having some sort of knowledge about it and understanding of it and of tactics, of man management and all that kind of stuff. So, and you can say, yeah, the Premier League's a different animal. Yeah, it is. It is a different animal, but football is still football. It's still 22 people kicking a ball around, right? So the rules are still the same and everything else. He just needs to use what he's learning to make sure that he doesn't continue to make the same mistakes, which is what has been his downfall so far this season, because he has kind of kept going the same way. Albeit, to be honest with you, I haven't seen so much gung ho football that we were expecting to see, and all this high line and all the rest of it. I haven't really seen it as such, but you've got to have the right quality of players to be able to support that. And maybe some of the players aren't quite what's needed to play the way he needs to play, because if you've got the right players that can play the sort of football that you want, quick, swift passing, high press and so on, then it's up to the opposition to stop you. and sometimes they can't. And hence why teams like Liverpool are doing really well, Man City have done really, really well over times, even Arsenal have done really well because they can do that. They've got players who can adapt and do what they need to do. Just think that Ange needs to do that little bit of adapting himself, certainly in his mindset of what it takes to win a game. Finally, just to finish off on this on the game itself, I thought that Bentancur was probably one of our better players in this game. He would have been my man of the match, I think. I thought there was a lot of players on the pitch who really put in a decent performance, but for me, Bentancur has been been a little bit of a worry since he came back from injury. He's not been the player that he was under Conte, for instance, or under Mourinho. I think he's an absolute quality player, but on this match, really felt like he wanted it. He really wanted to play. It meant a lot. And of course, the scenes at the end, the players celebrating with the fans, it's brilliant to see again. That's what you live for. That's what you love to see. So I'm hoping that, we can stick together until this is over, until it ends, whichever way around it ends. I hope that, I haven't been to, European away days. I can tell you there's nothing like it. So seeing the fans happy like that, it really makes the journey, the effort, the financial impact worth it. Something we didn't get at AZ, but brilliant that they got it last night in Frankfurt. So yeah, it's a great result. Really, really happy. On to Bodo Glimt, or whatever it's called, which again won't be easy. Really difficult team. Bearing in mind some of the teams they've beaten, they beat Lazio last night, and they were 3-0 down, I believe, at one point. So to come back and win shows that what they're about. Artificial pitch, I believe, above the northern Arctic Circle, is it, or Northern Circle, whatever they say. So very cold and all the rest of it. So in a very small town, I think it said something like the town is smaller than the capacity of Tottenham Stadium, which is absolutely crazy to think, isn't it? Anyway, so on to them, and fingers crossed we can do the business there and actually get to a final, which would be absolutely fantastic. So well done to Ange and the boys, and let's hope we can move on. So a couple of other things just wanted to touch on over the course of the last week. Obviously, one of the big news stories was Son being injured and not playing, not travelling even. I think that's really disappointing that Son didn't travel, but I can understand it dependent on how bad the injury is, because if he didn't travel but he's going to play at this weekend, then I can understand the not travelling, pointless him going all the way over there just to sit on the bench. If it's a longer injury which needs work doing and recovery time, again I understand it. Travelling all the way over to Germany and back, late night and all the rest of it, is that really worth it? I don't know. But for me, it's always good to have your captain around, even for motivation, even to be part of the celebrations, part of the squad and so on. So really interesting that he didn't travel. Bit disappointing, but understandable. I think the more difficult thing about this is the fact that we're saying that this has been going on for a little while. Now, it was only a couple of weeks ago that I was saying that he is saying, as in Son, is saying that he's really, really fit and happy and all the rest of it. So all of a sudden we've now got this injury. So when did that happen? After he went on international duty? And if he's been playing with an injury, playing with pain, that's never a good thing, because his performances, whether we like it or not, have not been to the standard that we have come to expect from Heung-min Son. So hopefully, if this gets put right, maybe he gets back to the sort of form that he was, that we've known from him. But we'll see. Couple of other little bits and pieces just to finish off. Lots of talk about a leak in the camp. Talking about knowing who it is and setting traps and all that. And I've listened to all that kind of talk about it. I guess My only point about the fact that we've got a leak in the club is I'm not bothered about that from a tactical point of view, because everyone knows the sort of football we're going to play. We know how we play. We know the players we've got and all the rest of it. But I think the bigger issue for me is the fact that, leaking of medical detail I think that's absolutely totally wrong. Not because it gives the other teams an edge or information or whatever, but this is people's private information. Could you imagine if your doctor was giving out your medical details to everyone in the world? You wouldn't want them to know about your, I don't know, whatever it might be, your medical. I was trying to think of something clever to say then, and I couldn't. Not without giving away my own medical history. Anyway, so I do think it's poor. Whilst it might be clever to be able to say, oh, so and so's pulled his hamstring or this or that or what, but this is someone's life. This is someone's medical detail, and I personally think it's something that should be kept in-house, private, between the person and the medical staff within the club, for them to kind of deal with in their own time, in their own way, and it shouldn't be being leaked out there. And I hope the person who's doing that gets caught. I hope they get the sack and they never work for another team again, because it's just a ridiculous thing to do. Whilst it might be funny and clever and gives journalists the edge or whatever, it's none of our business if someone's got something wrong with them. If they've torn a groin or torn a thing, we should be given that medical detail from the club in the right time, in the right way, with the players' permission of exactly what's wrong with them. That's just my view on it. And then finally, obviously, the other big news story that broke this week was that we've now got a new CEO. I'm not going to try and say his name, but apparently he was at Arsenal for 14 years, and everyone's asking, should we be bothered about that? And should that be an issue for us? Personally, I don't think it should be. At the end of the day, people work places regardless of their affiliations. I went up and did the Skywalk, and one of the guys who was walking us round with all the ropes and all the rest of it, he told us he was an Arsenal fan. And I said, well, what are you doing working here? He said, we don't have to support Tottenham to be able to show people how to walk around a roof. And I'm like, yeah, it's a good point, really. At the end of the day, you'd like to think that everyone's a Tottenham fan that's associated with the club, but clearly they're not. And I know that's a totally different level, but at the end of the day, the guy's there to make money. He's there to get paid. So he'll get paid his wages or get paid on his investment or whatever. Now, from what I've kind of heard and seen, read, this guy is very well respected, very good at bringing fans and stuff together and all that kind of stuff. But he is also big on the events and stuff like that. So a lot to do with Wembley and so on. So I think you'll probably find he's more likely to be coming in to manage things like, how can we get more events into the stadium? How can we create more revenue and that sort of stuff, rather than on the field bits and pieces, in my view. So I don't think it's going to be a big deal for us. I don't think we really should care about it. It's a background thing. It's something to do with the board and how they run the club and so on, in terms of their financials and long-term investment, I guess. So I don't think it's anything really to do with the club, as in the football club. I don't think it's going to affect anything. I don't think it's going to change anything. I think the fact that he's an Arsenal fan is irrelevant, or worked at Arsenal is irrelevant, because you don't necessarily know he's an Arsenal fan. So yeah, I know it's been a big story, but for me, it's something that I'm not particularly interested in. It's not something I'm particularly worried about. I just think it's one of those things that the club are doing in terms of looking after their investment of what they want to do, because I think it's clear that making the money to continue with the football, it has to go in the way that it's going. I don't think we're going to get any of those guys putting their hand in their pockets, being a, you know, super billionaire who can just use it as a plaything. I don't think that's the case. I think we're in the way that we are in, and we're going down the road that we're going down. I don't think Daniel Levy or the rest of the board, Enoch, are going to sell. I don't think that. I think there's too much money involved in it. You've got the hotel to come, and like you say, events and all the rest of it. I think there's too much money to be made outside of the football to be worrying about whether it's time to sell or not, because, you know, fans aren't happy. And I know that's a bit of a sad thing to kind of end a positive video on, but I think that's the case. But anyway, that's my view on it. You don't have to agree with me. It's all about opinions. You have to remember that. So yeah, I'll leave it there. But as I said, thanks very much for watching. I know it's a long video, so thank you very much if you've got to the end of it. If you do like the video, please do give us a thumbs up. That would be absolutely great, so we can see that. Comments in the comment section below, always happy to read those and see what you guys are thinking and whether I've got that right or not. And as I say, please do subscribe to Chris's channel. He does lots and lots of content, and it will help the channel grow and get the recognition it deserves. But until the next time, thanks very much, as I say, and up the Spurs.